here on TNN.
Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from Diamond P.
What a year it was. And drag racing fans, you need look no further to reminisce in your own VCR. With Diamond P Sports recap of the season, Drag Racing 94. From start to finish, Pomona to Pomona. We'll
TNN Motorsports next. You're enjoying the...
Imagine a Winter Nationals drag racing crossword puzzle. 11 down, 5 letters meaning to dominate. Would have to be Force, as in John Force, the winningest funny car driver in history and a 2-time event champion. But at 20 across, a 4-letter word for rival would be Force's nemesis, Cruz, as team owner Joe Gibbs' driver is the only other Winston champion the 90s have known. And a contender in 7 letters at 15 across would have to be Hoffman, an intense veteran known for big success on a very small budget. In top fuel clues at 7 down, another name for speed in 9 letters would be Bernstein, the king of high-velocity heroics here at Pomona just 3 months ago. While a 7-letter answer to champion starting with a K is spelled Coletta, as Scott reflects on the winningest top fuel season ever and hopes for a repeat in 95. And the clue, Dark Horse, the best bet in 5 letters is Amato, a multi-world champion who has 3 wins and 7 runners-up at Pomona in the last decade. In the world of pro stock, a 5-letter word meaning identical could only be Dodge, as the twin Avengers from Wayne County bring their formation flight to the Fairplex. 7 letters meaning revenge is no doubt Johnson, as the professor of pro stock looks to regain his championship form. But all should be wary of 40 across, as Yates is the answer to the clue fast food, the potent Pontiac now carrying the colors of the Golden Arches. All these contenders play a part in a pair of clues that mean excitement. NHRA at Pomona, the site of the 35th Cheap Auto Parts Winter Nationals. Coverage of the Cheap Auto Parts Winter Nationals from Pomona, California. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans. I feel like I know you all personally. We have been in your living room so much this weekend. In fact, this is the 3rd time today. In fact, what's for dinner? Anything but meatloaf would be fine. Now, this crowd of over 50,000 has seen a whale of a show today, and it did not have all the oil downs of Saturday's qualifying we talked about earlier on in the day. Now, the big guy in the truck said, Evans, pick out your favorite race in top fuel so far today. Let's go back to the 2nd round when the king of speed, Kenny Bernstein, the big red Budweiser car, met up with the Pennzoil yellow car of Eddie Hill first into the 4s. Hill, the 93 champion who went winless last year. Bernstein, who won the last race on this asphalt in October with a speed of 314 miles an hour. Well, you can't beat this one. I'll tell you, the fans were on their feet. The underdog crowd always roots for Eddie Hill, and the guys that really appreciate Bernstein's professionalism always go with the big red car. All right, it was Eddie Hill going to the semifinal round at 479.301. Dave McClellend.
Steve, what a surprise. John Force putting his car away inside the transporter. The reason? One of the biggest upsets in drag racing occurred here at the Winter Nationals. John Force and Gary Bolger squared off in round number 2. As they left the starting line, Force's Pontiac dropped the cylinder. The Castrol car fell back. Bolger pulled ahead until he took a substantial victory and advanced to the next round. Force was left confronted by one of the biggest upsets in drag racing. There's been a lot of action in pro stock as well. Bob Frey has the story.
Dave, for most of the 1990s, the action in pro stock came either from an Oldsmobile pit area or from the Mopar pit area. As a matter of fact, from 1990 through 94, it was either Dodges or Oldsmobiles winning the Winston Championship. Well, we might have a changing of the guard coming up. Earlier today, 2nd round action, 2 resurgent Pontiacs, Jim Yates, who had national event wins last year, and Jerry Ekman, the 1992 champion here at the Winter Nationals, squared off in a great run. It was a 7:18 to a 7:17. The Pontiacs starting to flex their muscles a little bit here at the Chief Auto Parts Winter Nationals. Pontiac cars look like they might serve notice that they could be very hard to beat here this year. So let's see. Could be 7 words meaning challenger. How about Pontiac? Could be. We got more coming up.
To the beautiful LA County Fairplex, the Chief Auto Parts Winter Nationals. Our live finals about 25 minutes away. People sometimes say, Evans, did you ever drag race? You know I did, and the only top eliminator I ever won was right here because my little Chevy Fueler was so squirrely. And in those days, you could cross the center line and not be disqualified. Nobody wanted to pass me, so I won. Here's Dave McClellend coming up right now with the Pro Stock Report. Everything that's gone on today is now yours.
The qualifying ladder for the Chief Winter Nationals Pro Stock field shows just how tight it's going to be this year. Warren Johnson, number 1 with the Oldsmobile. Darrell Alderman's Dodge, number 2 at an 05. Troy Coughlin rounding out the quick 8. Starting the second half of the field, Chuck Harris at a 714 down to Ray Franks and the bump spot of a 716. Warren Johnson, the number 1 qualifier at 7.03 seconds. His speed was 196 miles an hour. A fine pass for Warren Johnson in his GM Performance Parts Oldsmobile. It was his son in round number 1 in the near lane in the Mark Christopher Oldsmobile up against the resurging Pennzoil Pontiac of Jerry Ekman. Ekman had qualified 14th, pulled off a giant upset when he drove around Kurt Johnson and took the win. He went on to round number 2, losing there to Jim Yates, as we saw earlier. Still in round number 1, Steve Schmidt in his Oldsmobile in the near lane. The Dynagear car up against the Ford Quality Care probe. Rusty Glidden at the wheel, subbing for his recovering dad, Bob, who's doing well after a 6-way heart bypass. Rusty pulls off the upset, 7:15 at 192 miles an hour. Then in round number 2, Rusty in the Ford was up against one of the flying Dodges, Scott Jeffrey on number 2 with the Winston Chase last year. Nearly identical reaction times. A great start for both drivers, but it was Jeffrey on winning it. Elapsed time 7:12 at 194.
There's a lot of oil downs out there with the fuel cars, but hey, my guys got it from A to B, so I'm happy.
And that happiness moves him into the semifinals. Still in round number 2, it was Warren Johnson, the GM Performance Parts Olds, the number 1 qualifier, up against second-generation driver Troy Coughlin in the Jake's mail-order Oldsmobile. Boy, Jake gave him everything he could as Troy tried to beat WJ, but a 709 won it.
A little hot and greasy out there right now. Just getting down it is a trick, let alone winning.
You got down it quicker than anybody else so far at an 09.
Well, we're fortunate for that. We made some adjustments. We didn't know whether it'd pay off, but apparently it did.
Round number 2 saw the Winston champ Darrell Alderman in the near lane up against the Summit Racing Oldsmobile of Mark Powing. Alderman and his flying Dodge Avenger had a great time on this run. Great side-by-side racing, a Carling victory, 709.
Warren fires off a 709. Alderman answers, 709.
Yeah, I felt like it was a pretty good pass that time, Steve. It didn't shake on me or anything. I really felt maybe it was just a tad better than that.
Now, the first race in the semifinals saw Scott Jeffrey on in the Dodge up against Warren Johnson in the Oldsmobile, and we all know these two do not exchange Christmas cards. The fans looking forward to this one. I think they're about evenly divided. Jeffrey on, as you'll soon see, was first off the mark. Jeffrey on in control. Jeffrey on in control all the way down the drag strip. 7:08 to a 7:10 put Scott Jeffrey on into the final round. I'll tell you, anytime you race Warren, you're up.
Yeah, you get fired up to run Warren, that's for sure. But it just feels good to have this car in the final, just like we did at the World Finals, you know. Hopefully we'll have a little different results here.
You know, I don't have to go very far to find our other finalist and Bob Frey, because you know what? He's standing about 10 feet away. Bobby?
Yo, Steve, over here. Well, that Pontiac we talked about looked pretty good going into the semifinal matchup. Unfortunately, he would meet up with a Dodge, and the Dodges are very tough. Semifinal, Yates against Darrell Alderman. Alderman uncorked a great run at 7.06 seconds. Almost looked like the car stumbled a little bit at the starting line, or maybe Jim Yates hitting that ball on again and off again. Kind of threw Darrell off just a little bit. But Alderman put a 7.06 in there, and it's you and the kid in this finals again.
Well, I'm telling you, Bob, he's extremely tough today. He's been slashing that tree down, and I tell you, I'm really dreading to come up against him in the final.
Oh, I can see fear written all over him. Love these great new shirts, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that's the new Dodge Boys shirts. We really like them.
Did a great job. It's Scott, it's Darrell coming up into the finals, and Pro Stock fans ought to love it. Let's go back now to Big Mac.
Bob, let's take a look at the ladder and see how they got there. If you have a favorite in Pro Stock, look close. This is the top half, the quicker qualified side of the ladder. Warren Johnson met Ray Franks in the first round. And, of course, Scott Jeffreyon was up against Terry Adams. As they moved into round number 2, it was Jeffreyon and Glidden. You saw that run while Johnson and Coughlin battled it out. In the semifinals, Johnson and Jeffreyon Of course, the Dodge won it and moved to the final round. On the other side of the ladder, that's where you'll find Darrell Alderman. He was against Butch Abbott in the first round, took the victory there. Went on to round number 2. We saw Alderman and Powick have the opportunity to square off in another one of the classic Dodge versus Oldsmobile battles. Then as we moved on into the next round, Bob just showed you the semifinal match between Alderman and Yates. And what does it bring to the finals? Number 1 in the Winston Series last year against number 2, Darrell Alderman versus Scott Jeffreyon in the finals of Pro Stock. That'll be coming up in a few moments. But I'll tell you what, we've got the story on funny car action coming up next. Don't go away. We'll be right back to Pomona.
We're back live on TNN, Pomona, California, the Chief Auto Parts Winter Nationals NHRA Championship Drag Racing. The shadows are lengthening, but the National Hot Rod Association says they're right on time, and so are we. As always, big crowds around all of the finalists. Let's find out what's going on in the funny car category today. Here's Dave McClellend again to tell you all what's going on.
John Force starting off 95 as he ended 94 at the top of the list in the funny car field. He was the number 1 qualifier with a 5:07. The quick 8 was ended by Gary Densham in the 8th spot at a 5:25. On the second half of the field, Gary Bolger started it off number 9 at a 5:25. And in the number 16 spot, rounding it out, Wyatt Redke with a fine 5:39. In round number 1, it was Densham versus Bolger. Should have been and was one of the quick, close races of the day. Number 8 and 9 qualifiers, respectively. Bolger moved out to take the win, a 5:31 at 278. He went on then to upset John Force in round number 2, as we saw earlier. Dean Scusa had qualified in the number 4 spot. The independent racer took out Dale Poldy in round number 1. That moved the Brecksville, Ohio team into round number 2, where he was up against the Kendall GT1 Super Winch Dodge of Chuck Etchells. This time, the string ran out for Scusa as Etchells won at a 5:26, 284 mile an hour.
When Bolger took Force out, was that a little hoop I heard up from under that helmet?
No, not me. I mean, Force is going to be there at the end of the year. This is the first race, and I think some guys overreact, get a little overexcited, but it's a long season.
Still in round number 2, it was Cruz Pedregon in the Joe Gibbs McDonald's Pontiac up against the new Ford Mustang of Gary Clapjaw. Gary blew an engine, almost lost control, but saved it, and Pedregon won it at 5:25.
The Pontiac's been hooked up all weekend, but it was loose that time. It's getting sunny out there, a little out of the groove, but it's Joe Gibbs McDonald's cars in the semifinals.
2 of Funny Car's 300-mile-an-hour runners met in round number 2. The Rug Dr. Olds of Jim Epler up against the Western Auto Slick 50, now Pontiac of Al Hoffman. Epler had a big lead, but watched it disappear when mechanical problems set in. Hoffman wins it.
Seemed to run good up on the other end, but it wasn't going anywhere when I stepped on it, so it felt like it dropped the cylinder.
The first race in Funny Car semifinals found that upset-minded Gary Bolger up against Chuck Etchells in the Kendall GT1 car. This time, though, Bolger was just outclassed completely by Chuck Etchells, but a lot of smoke at the finish line out of the Etchells car. A great 5:12, but an awful lot of engine damage. In fact, joining me right now is Chuck Etchells. You heard it big time.
Yeah, Steve, well, I mean, we didn't kick a rod out or anything like that, just blacked the crank. When they took it all apart, I mean, that's all that was wrong with it.
You had a close call there. You and Bolger got pretty close together at the finish line.
Well, I knew I was kind of over to the right. The thing was throwing so much clutch dust, I really couldn't see very well at all. So when I stepped off, I saw the center line right there, but I knew I was in my lane. And all of a sudden, I see Bolger go swerving by me. I went, whoa, like he almost tagged me.
He's a pretty good driver. He's used to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's from the old match race days.
Okay, Bob Frey is with the other half of the Funny Car final. Robert?
Steve, the other Final Four was almost a dead heat on the racetrack. Cruz Pedregon coming out of the Joe Gibbs Racing Stable, taking on Al Hoffman in the Western Auto Machine. It was a titanic matchup, one on the starting line. Identical times to the thousandth at 5.143 for both of them. It was those lightning-quick reflexes of Cruz Pedregon that got the Mickey D's team into the finals. And Cruz, is a great way to start for Joe Gibbs and the McDonald's gang.
It sure is. I can't say enough about this team. To put this team together in 2.5 months and be out here in the final round for our 6th straight trip to the final round is spectacular. I can't say enough about my crew. Bob Brandt, Larry Frazier on board with us this year along with the crew. Fantastic job. We're in the final.
Starting hasn't been a problem for you. Stopping's been a challenge.
Well, we've had some parachute. I have a button on the parachute this year, and it's really working good. But today it's a little slow coming out. But there's plenty of room to stop here. We ran 296 here. Hopefully we can run quicker, and we'll worry about stopping later.
Cruz Pedregon doing a great job. The Joe Gibbs team might hit a home run. Whoops, wrong sport. Dave?
Bob, the Valvoline ladder shows us exactly how our finalists reached that point. From his number 2 spot, it was Cruz Pedregon advancing on. His opponent is Chuck Etchells, who had qualified in the number 4 position. Etchells in the first round defeated Del Worsham. Then, as you saw earlier, it was Dean Scusa and Etchells meeting in round number 2. That's where Force went out at the hands of Gary Bolger, who was the opponent for Chuck in the semifinals. You saw the results of that just a moment ago, and now Chuck Etchells trying to get his car ready to race against the number 2 qualifier, Cruz Pedregon. He beat Gordy Bonin in the Smokin' Joe's Mustang in round number 2. Then Pedregon came round number 1, rather. In the second round, it was the Gary Clapshaw incident. Clapshaw exploded the motor in that Ford Mustang, and he got all that oil under the tires, but was able to keep it off the guardrail. Pedregon went on to the semifinals, where you saw the race against Al Hoffman. And Pedregon, even though he's run 296 miles an hour on this racetrack, has had problems all day long getting the car to stop. The new parachute release, his timing just not quite what it needs to be to get that car's parachute out just at the finish line. We're coming back with a story in Top Fuel as they prepare the clutch in the McDonald's Pontiac. We'll be right back.
We are back live. 50,000 people at the LA County Fairplex, the Chief Auto Parts Winter Nationals. I'm Steve Evans along with Dave McClellend and Bob Frey. You can hear the finalists. They're warming them up, talking to each other with the throttles, nitro pouring out of the pipes. Whit Basemore's funny car here got beat in the first round by Gary Clapshaw, but let's find out right now what's happened earlier today in Top Fuel. David?
The Kings of the Hill Top Fuel Eliminator had that man at the top, Eddie Hill, resurging after a difficult 94 season. 480 for the quick time. Kenny Bernstein was number 8 in the field at a 488. Number 9 was Blaine Johnson at a 490. And the 16-car field ran down to Rance McDaniel's 507. Lots of the racers had problems getting a hold of the racetrack. In the first round, here's one of them. The Valvoline car of Joe Amato, the 5-time Winston champ, up against the pick-your-parts Top Fuel Dragster, driven by Rhonda Hartman, and a giant upset as Amato smoked the tires, and Hartman, the 13th qualifier, ran 5:02 to win. Larry Dixon has been the story of this race, taking over the driving chores for Don Prudhomme. He was up against Connie Coletta, and boom! The engine exploded at the finish line. Dixon brought the car to a safe stop. He ran 472 at 295, and that engine explosion meant a lot of work for the Miller Genuine Draft team, and that's Larry Dixon performing some of the hard work right there on the cylinder head. Round number 2, it was Dixon against Shelly Anderson. Shelly driving the Western Auto Texaco Haviland car. Defending champion at the Winter Nationals, watched her hopes go down to defeat to a 486.
After what happened first round, you know, the whole Miller crew, Wes Cerny, everybody did good. You know, Snake's car, we're going to try and retire to a winner.
Dixon moved on to the semifinals. His opponent would be Scott Coletta, the Ypsilanti, Michigan driver, winning the Winston Championship a year ago. Defeated Robert Reel in the first round and Corey Mack in round number 2. Rhonda Hartman's day, well, it was good to this point when she faced Mike Dunn in the La Victoria Salsa car. Hartman dropped the cylinder. Dunn won the race at 487.
We hurt Fist in the first round, so all we did basically was fix that, and hopefully it wasn't going to hurt, and that's probably where the other mile an hour came around about the same ET, and we're just happy to get the win.
The semifinals kicked off with Eddie Hill against Mike Dunn. We already showed you Eddie Hill's great second-round victory at 479.301 against Kenny Bernstein. Well, he defeated Mike Dunn, but the car just wasn't the same animal. A little off song, 489 at only 298 miles an hour. But, Eddie, I know you rushed back to the trailer, got cozy with the computer in the lounge. What did it tell you?
Well, it told us we dropped a cylinder 0.2 of a second in the run, and it didn't pick it up till 2 seconds out. So we had a hole out for nearly 2 seconds, and I hope we've got that fixed this time. We jumped on it a little bit for the final.
You need a win.
Yeah, we really do. It's been great so far. That 301.70 really got our fire going.
All right, that's the number 1 qualifier as well. Bob Frey, who's he going to race?
The other semifinal matchup pitted Scott Coletta, the reigning Winston champion, and ironically enough, the guy that dethroned Eddie Hill, against what might be the sentimental favorite, Larry Dixon. Dixon had been putting big numbers up on the board and using up the parts, used up the tires almost immediately. Scott Coletta then went on, put another 480 up on the scoreboard, and he goes into the championship final. Now, it's interesting as we get set to go to the final, Scott, you said you're a little out of shape. It's been a while since you've gone 4 rounds.
Yeah, last September was the last time we went 4 rounds. We sort of stumbled there the last 3 races of the year and went out first round every race. So, you know, we had a couple months off, too, so we're getting used to it. Plus his heat. I mean, it's devastating.
You kind of need the last 2 Winston champs going at it here in the finals.
Yeah, that's for sure. You know, Eddie, he doesn't back into it any time. You know, he's a tough competitor, but we're going to give it our best shot.
So if you're doing those crossword puzzles, whether it's number 1 up or down, it's 7 letters. It's the champ. It's Coletta. Dave?
What a dream matchup. The 1993 Winston champ against the 94 champion in Top Fuel. Here's how Eddie Hill got there, laid out on the Valvoline ladder. If you have a favorite in Top Fuel and we haven't told you about them before, take a look. This is exactly what happened. In the first round, it was Hill over McDaniel. In round number 2, you saw the action. Hill defeated Bernstein. Then in the semifinals that we just watched, Hill got the jump and took the win over Mike Dunn. On the other side of the ladder, how about Scott in the number 6 spot? He defeated Larry Dixon. Or correction, that was Connie Coletta that was beat by Larry Dixon. There is Scott down at the bottom. He topped Robert Reel. Then he beat Corey McClelland in a matchup of good pals. Scott then went on to defeat Dixon. We just missed it by a round or so in the semifinals. And the 1993 champ, Eddie Hill, goes against Scott Coletta back in the Eddie Hill pit area. They are hard at work getting it ready. That is Ursi, Eddie's wife, making a check of the nitromethane. She hopes there's lots of power there. The fans looking on as Dick LaHaye heads the crew on Scott Coletta's entry. We'll be back with final round action coming up in a moment.
It has a 350.
We are back live at the Cheap Auto Parts Winter Nationals. Behind me, you can see Eddie and Ursi Hill, Buzzy Carter, and all the crew pushing that Top Fuel Dragster, the number 1 qualifier, into the staging lanes to meet up with Scott Coletta. You know, in all of our live shows, the Chrysler Corporation presents the Mopar High Performer of the Race Award. Now, the judges just couldn't decide between Darrell Alderman and Scott Jeffreyon. So instead, we're going to give it to the Wayne County Speed Shop. After all, they own both machines. So congratulations to Mike Sullivan and Dave Hutchins. They are, for, I believe, the 2nd or 3rd time, the Mopar High Performer of the Week. And right now, we've got cars on the starting line ready to go. Alcohol classes, Dave McClellend.
Steve, we're going to start off with Alcohol Funny Car, and what a match this is. The number 1 qualifier, Randy Anderson, in the newly sponsored Western Auto Texaco Haviland car. Part of that 2-car team of the Anderson family is sister Shelley, running in Top Fuel. That's Brad, Randy's dad, doing the action, getting that engine started. We want to remind you, fans of Championship Rodeo, that it will be back next week at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on TNN. And do not forget that race day will be coming up immediately following this show. That'll be at 8:30 Eastern Time. So race day coming up 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Championship Rodeo back next week at 8 p.m. Eastern as we go into Alcohol Funny Car. We've told you about this one. This is the Pontiac of Randy Anderson. He qualified number 1. His opponent, one of the best-looking cars a racetrack has ever seen, Joe Penland, out of Nederland, Texas, driving his Oldsmobile Achieva bodied car. He qualified in the number 6 spot and worked his way through the field. But the story has all been Randy Anderson from a 5:83, number 1 qualifying time for Joe Penland. He's had times like 5:97. Penland had a 5:99 in round number 2, and in the semis a 5:94. He is off pace by about 6 to 8 hundredths of a second compared to Randy Anderson's time. Penland from Nederland, Texas, had the problems a year ago in the last 1994 season of losing control of the car, stuffing it into the guardrail at the U.S. Nationals. They had to repair it and get it back in operation, but he has started off this 95 season with a bang. Brad Anderson, you remember him all the way back to the A-Gas Supercharged days. Bob Frey's down on the starting line. Great night for racing out here in Southern California, Bob.
Oh, it's dynamite. The Penland guys know that they're up against it here. Remember, they qualified number 1 here at the Winston Select Finals, but Randy Anderson's slowest run of the weekend has been a 5:88. I asked Joe's dad what it's going to take to win. He said, well, a little bit of luck. I said, can you run an 80? He said, I don't think so.
Well, Joe Penland gave Randy Anderson maybe a little bit more than he might have bargained for. Penland had a slight advantage at the starting line. 5:82, low elapsed time for the weekend for Randy Anderson at a speed of 242 miles an hour, and the reigning Winston champ starts off 95 with a bang. Joe Penland came oh so close to those 580s. His elapsed time was 5.90. His speed, 238 miles an hour. A creditable job indeed. The margin of victory at the finish line was 71 thousandths of a second. That is Gary Turner. You know him best for GT Bicycles. That's his initials. The acronym GT stands for Gary Turner. He's got one of the top alcohol dragsters in competition. The entry driven by Bobby Taylor. Who's he up against? Undoubtedly the crowd favorite, the small block Chevy-powered car of Rick Santos, who came oh so close to winning the Winston title a year ago. Santos has been looking good today, Bob Frey.
This is interesting because it's a battle of the two West Coast divisional champs, Division 6 and Division 7, and there really isn't a lot of love lost between the two. Santos took some size out of the motor from last year. It's down about 14 cubic inches, and it's about 60 pounds lighter. The Taylor-Turner combination, a magnificent, brand-new Brad Hadman car. It's like a top fuel machine with an alcohol motor in it. It should be really interesting. Santos came here last year and watched the Winston title slip away to Tom Conway. I've asked him after every round, are you thinking championship? He said, not yet. And I don't believe it for a moment, Dave.
I don't either, Bob. Santos has got the quickest time of the two cars over the weekend, a 5:79 in round number 2 when he defeated Steve Faria. But the lane choice goes to Bobby Taylor in this final round. He had the quick time in the semis of 5:90 compared to Santos' 5:95. And the win goes to Bobby Taylor. The small block Chevy falling off, and Gary Turner's got to be a happy, happy car owner. As Bobby Taylor drives to the Winter Nationals title, 586, his speed 237 miles an hour. The whole shot, the advantage. Look at the applause for himself as he makes the turnoff at the far end. The advantage went to Rick Santos by some 0.03 of a second at the starting line, but the win went to Bobby Taylor. Let's go down to the starting line as our pro stocks get lined up. Here again, Bob.
Well, it's like deja vu. Seems like a couple of months ago we're here, and you guys are duking out at the Winston Select Finals.
Yeah, Dodge boys are having a lot of fun here today in Pomona. I don't know. We left off here at the end of the year, and we're having fun here today again.
They certainly are having fun. Magnificent race cars. Love those two new T-shirts, too. The Dodge Boys and the 1-2 punch. Darrell Alderman, meanwhile, coming off that Winston championship, also loves running at this racetrack. You were 3-2 against him last year. Ready to put another one on your side of the ladder?
Well, you know, I'd like to do that. Of course, he's wanting to do the same thing to me, so it's going to be a good race for the fans.
On behalf of Darrell, I'd like to say hi to his mom and dad watching home in Kentucky, hopefully. To the mom and dad, watch your kid. We got great Pro Stock Finals coming up. It's the Dodge Boys. Stick around.
Is in Southern California. We're here live at the Fairplex in Pomona for the 35th annual running of the Chief Auto Parts Winter Nationals, and we're getting set to go with Pro Stock Eliminators. There is your reigning Winston champion, Darrell Alderman. Alongside of him, his teammate, winner of 6 national event titles a year ago, Scott Jeffrey. Joining me in the booth is the driver of the Summit Racing Oldsmobile, Mark Powig. Mark, I know you want to be on the racetrack, but thanks for stopping by.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Mac. I wish I was down there taking on one of those Dodge boys. So
you did that once already today, and it didn't work out too good.
No, I got the wrong end of the ladder, that's for sure.
You ran into the juggernaut that is Alderman. He's going to be tough to beat this season.
Yeah, he's, you know, again, the Dodgers have put a great team together, but being the last season with Oldsmobile, all of us are working extra hard, and we're going to give him a challenge.
Bob Frey's down on the starting line. What does the condition look like to you, Bob? It seems to me that the lanes are fairly equal.
Yeah, it really does, Dave. This is going to be an interesting matchup. I'm not sure that Scott has got enough race car under him to handle Darrell Alderman in this one. Darrell told me back there in the pits after that interview a little while ago that he thinks his car can go a little bit quicker than the O's that he ran earlier in the day, and I'm not sure that Scotty's got that much muscle. Of course, I also thought San Diego would beat the 49ers.
So much for your thinking there. I hope you don't have it on this one as you did on that game. The engine's coming up against the limiters. Let's watch and listen. Darrell Alderman drove away from Scott Jeffrey on. Scott had the advantage at the start, and he did improve. 7:05 at 196 miles an hour plus. Darrell Alderman calmly bringing the car to a stop and making the turn off as you take a look at our onboard camera. Let's go to Bob.
Well, David, 7:05, and that's another one for Darrell over Scott. Little bragging rights for you guys.
Yeah, it's been a real good race. Both of them done an excellent job driving, and we were able to bring the cars to the racetrack, and we were real happy with this race.
Well, you should be. You won it, and you end up the same way you ended up the 1994 racing season right here. Let's take a look at it again, Dave.
Our replay shows an advantage going to Scott Jeffrey on Mark Powick, but he just didn't have the power.
No, he didn't, Dave. Scott's been driving really good all weekend, and I thought maybe he'd pull one out on a hole shot, but Darrell was back on his game in the final and did a great job.
Boy, look at that, 7:05, and you can just watch him drive. During the run, you were on board with Darrell Alderman, and you saw him pulling away from Scott. The margin of victory just a little over a half a car length. Darrell Alderman wins, and that's the champ. Here's Steve.
It's a darn good thing you had a 7:05 because your partner over there welded you a bit on the lights.
Yeah, I could see you got out on me a little bit there. This car's been spinning a little bit in low gear, but it really comes on about 300 feet, and he's been cutting the tree down all day long.
Scott, running here real quick. It looks like a war again between you two guys, maybe for a championship.
Well, I don't know, but us Dodge boys are having a lot of fun out here today, so it just ended up a little different than I wanted, but hey, it's in the team.
Okay. Congratulations to both of you. You're on top of the Pro Stock points.
And here's the point standings, 1 and 2. And if you notice a different total, it's because instead of 200 points per round win, you get 20 for each round win this year. Right now, Alderman in the lead, followed by Jeffrey Oden, Warren Johnson, Jim Yates, Mark Powick. You round out our top 5. Thanks for joining us here in the booth. Let's go down to Bob Frey. He's got the funny car crew chiefs.
Well, obviously, nobody told Tim Richards that cleanliness is next to godliness. You guys are making a mess.
Well, we've been pretty busy back there. We had to change a motor between the last round and this final, and got pretty hectic.
Well, you have plenty of time to rest up after the finals. Good luck to Tim Richards and Chuck Etchells and the Kendall GT1 crew. Coming in, the much highly touted Joe Gibbs Racing Team as they get set to take on Etchells here in the final. Larry Frazier, seems like every time we're talking to you, you're with a car that's a winner.
Pardon me?
Really, you guys have done a great job this weekend.
Thank you, Bob. We appreciate it. We've been trying. Everything's come together pretty well for our first week out. We're happy with this.
Larry Frazier, a man of few words. Bob Brandt, meanwhile, up there on the starting line checking out the racetrack. Neither one of the teams think that lane choice is going to make a difference. Is it? Stay tuned.
Everyone to the Cheap Auto Parts Winter Nationals, Pomona, California. 1 down, 2 to go in the professional finals. Funny car coming up next, Dave McClellend.
The sound you hear is a 6,000-plus horsepower nitro-burning engine. In fact, 2 of them. Here is the new McDonald's Pontiac out of Joe Gibbs Racing. Cruz Pendragon at the wheel, his opponent. Chuck Etchells in the Kendall GT1 Super Winch Dodge Avenger. They got the car back together, and we have a guest commentator in the booth that is heartbroken over this weekend. He is the defending funny car champion. He's about ready to lose that title. Casey Hollywood Spurlock, the driver of the Fruit of the Loom Dodge. What happened, Casey?
Well, Mike, I sure wish I was out there defending my title, but unfortunately time ran out on the Fruit of the Loom active wear team. We weren't able to do the testing we wanted at Bakersfield and Phoenix, and every little gremlin that we should have found in testing bit us here. So I've got to say the funny car boys got an easy time this weekend. I wasn't even on the track.
You're on board just then with Chuck Etchells as he backs up after his burnout. Bob Frey, I can't think of better weather conditions here in Southern California. Not quite as hot today as it's been the last couple of days.
This is ideal drag racing weather. This is a good matchup, and this could be a preview of what we're going to see during the year. We mentioned in the show yesterday and again earlier today that I think Joe Gibbs is going to bring a steadying force to this McDonald's team. The addition of Larry Frazier doesn't hurt either, David.
Certainly not. You just got a glimpse of the complexity of today's modern-day nitro-burning engine. There's a lot of fuel lines on that motor.
There really is, Dave. We're pumping more and more fuel into these cars, and most of the top teams today have engineers on staff to control these systems. It's really getting out of control sometimes.
Well, maybe it's sort of controlled mayhem, if you will.
Exactly.
Cruz Pendragon making his 6th consecutive final round appearance. He won 3 times in the last 5 races last year. I'd say he's on a hot streak.
I'd say he's definitely the favorite here. Watch the tree. Cruz is probably going to get out on Chuck here.
Starter Buster Couch beginning his final season as the official starter of NHRA drag racing. And it is Cruz Pedregon in the debut performance of the Joe Gibbs Racing Team. Cruiser wins it 5:30 at 278. Maybe smoked a motor out of it, but at this point, nobody really cares. There's Joe Gibbs, the former coach of the Washington Redskins, now the owner of that team, and Bob is with Bob Brandt.
Bob, you were up on the starting line by yourself while the crew was back there with the race car. What were your thoughts right before the run?
Just that the car would do what we wanted to do. You know, we've been trying really hard here. We've been fighting some fatigue with the motor, but it's coming around. The main thing was the win for Joe Gibbs, McDonald's, and all the good sponsors that made it possible for us to be here. It was a lot of work over the winter, but it's paying off.
I told you guys were going to run a 30. I'll bet you wouldn't figure that would win it.
No, I didn't, but I just want to win. That's all that matters.
Great. Bob Brandt, the Joe Gibbs team. Go deep, and I'll fake it to you, Bob. Let's see this again, David.
We'll take a look again. Bob Brandt, of course, a familiar name in drag racing. He was with the glory days of Don Prudhomme. What happened to Chuck Etchell?
Well, the car shut off pretty quick there. It looks like maybe he had a broken throttle linkage. I didn't see the belt come off, but something just snapped on the Chuck Etchell's car and completely lost power.
Pedregon thundered through the traps, 5.30 at 278 miles an hour, and as Bob Brandt said, he didn't expect to win the race with a 5:30, but I have a favorite saying, TDR, that's drag racing, and that's the winner. Steve?
Lita Jones, Sales and Promotions Manager for Cheap Auto Parts, presenting a beautiful little medallion around Cruz Pedregon's neck. There's the trophy, symbolic of a national event win. He'll get $45,000 in cash, and you're not settling for runner-up today.
No, we were on a mission today. I'll tell you, I can't say enough about Bob Brandt, Larry Frazier. The team that Joe Gibbs has put together is something spectacular. You'll be hearing a lot from us, but I really want to thank the associate sponsors that come on board along with McDonald's, Interstate Batteries, EDS, Champion, all of them. They're great. And, hey, this team, we're happy for Joe Gibbs and all the crew.
Okay. Dave?
Steve, Cruz Pedregon's got to be thrilled because he's leading the Winston Points chase, followed by Chuck Etchell's, Al Hoffman, Gary Bolger, and John Force. And our thanks to Casey Spurlock for joining us here in the booth, bringing an insight that only a driver can share about what it's like to drive one of these cars a quarter of a mile. Down at the starting line, Bob Frey's with our Top Fuel finalists.
Fuzzy, do you remember how to do this?
It's been a while, but I think we can get right back in the groove here. The track looks real good, and I'm ready.
This should be a nice matchup. What do you think? The two previous champions.
Yeah, it's going to be a real good race. The track's real good. I think they're pretty equal, and I believe it'll be one of the best drag races you've ever seen.
Good luck to Fuzzy Carter and Eddie Hill. And the team, meanwhile, up there on the starting line, already checking out the racetrack over there, is Dick LaHaye. He doesn't want to move away from that starting line, so let's track him down over here. Dick is very busy looking at this starting line. Dick, what do you see down here? The lane's going to be any different or make a difference in this race?
Well, this one here looks like it's a little bald, but we want to run down it. That one over there looks a little worse, so I guess we're going to try to take the worst of two evils.
Well, you got the choice. You got nobody to blame but yourself. That's why the crew chiefs make the big bucks. Top Fuel.
NHRA Winter Nationals is sponsored in part by Allied Signals Autolite Spark Plugs, guaranteed for 2 years, no matter how far you go. Look at this, the Pennzoil Dragster of Eddie Hill coming in. The burnout's underway. His opponent is Scott Coletta, our guest commentator. Corey McClelland, the driver of the McDonald's car. You got to be thrilled for your teammate Cruz Pedregon.
I really am, and especially for Joe Gibbs, come out here and win the first race, Winter Nationals, of course. He's really excited, and it's gonna help us all in the future races.
Nice way to start the season. I understand, Bob Frey, while we were away, that some sideline action took place down at the starting line.
Yeah, they took Joe Gibbs and doused him with Gatorade or whatever it was in that thing, but it looked like a Super Bowl tradition, and he was elated. I mean, just beside himself. It really was a big win for the team, but right now we're focusing on the Top Fuel matchup. Both teams really crashed. Scott Coletta was almost visibly tired when I talked to him back in the pit area. He said that he had a real hard day working, and then he joked about being out of shape because he hadn't gone 4 rounds in quite some time. Remember, Eddie Hill came out of the box Thursday qualifying, broke on the starting line and figured, oh no, not 1994 all over again.
1994 was a tough year for the reigning Winston champ. He did not even make the top 10 standings, Corey.
Yeah, but what a comeback. I mean, to have a year like he did and then come back, and look who he's up against, Dick LaHaye and crew. I mean, 94 and 93 champions all in the final here.
You could not ask for a better Top Fuel final. Of course, Eddie doesn't have much sympathy for Scott. He's about 32 years old. Scott Coletta is. Eddie Hill is 58, be 59 on the 6th of March. He says, the kid's tired? Come on, get a life.
It'll be a good race.
Oh, what a way to end a fabulous weekend. 485, 299 miles an hour. If the crew doesn't kill each other in celebration, they'll be down to pick up Eddie Hill at the far end of the track. Down at the starting line in that melee is Bob Frey.
Let's see. I don't know how many letters in ecstatic, but it'll look good on the crossword puzzle. Way to go.
Oh, man, I want to thank Pennzoil, Detroit Gasket, the Traders, Snap-on, all the people that hung with us last year. We had a real bad year, but I think this year's going to be a lot better. It's already starting out.
It's a magnificent start to the season. Congratulations. Let's look at that Eddie Hill win again.
As we take a look in replay, Corey Mack, what happened to your good pal Scott Collette?
Well, he did leave on him. Eddie's had a rough time on the tree, but, that smoking tire god got him this time, and it's one of those things. I'll tell you, Dick LaHaye is usually on top of things, but the track got him, I think, this time.
It bit you in the round earlier as you fell to Scott Collette when you smoked the tires, but Eddie Hill just won his 12th Top Fuel title. Eddie has got the lead in the Winston Points chase. Scott Collette is second, Larry Dixon in number 3, Mike Dunn number 4, and Corey McClelland is 5th, and we'll be right back. Winter Nationals has been brought to you by Mopar, Chrysler Corporation Parts, and the Chrysler Plymouth Dodge Trucks, Jeep, and Eagle dealers who sell and install them. Now to the far end, here's Steve and the Top Fuel champ.
I'm getting in on the hugging down here. 983 put a tear in this man's eye and a prayer on her lips, and it's all paid off. They've won their first Winter National.
Oh, we sure have, and now we're number 1 in points, and we got momentum, and all the new stuff works great. And I bet Pennzoil and Detroit Gasket and Traders are proud of us tonight. What do you think?
I think so.
And I think there'll be a party somewhere in Texas tonight, too.
There might be one in California.
485, not quite what you wanted, but who cares?
Well, we didn't smoke the tires.
Yep, you didn't beat yourself.
No, we didn't that time. The tendency was there, but we held off.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It feels so good.
A promotional consideration has been furnished by and a fee paid by Diamond P Sports for this special offer.
We've just gotten underway with the 1995 season. 1994 is just a memory, but you can relive the entire season if you call now and order Drag Racing 94.
1995 season of NHRA Winston Championship Drag Racing live here on TNN. I want to remind you fans of Championship Rodeo that it will be back at its regular time at 8 o'clock.
No more laughs. Thanks to Penrod Beach Club, thanks to the cabbie who dropped me off here, most of all, thanks to the irrefutable laws of gravity which make this all possible.